Sadly, here the Duke of Bavaria wanted to bring Christianity to all over his country. First, with help of some Irish monks, but soon became a Benedictine monastery. Still today, it is a Benedictine monastery, 7 monks in it, including 1 abbot. So this is not only a monastery, it's an abbey. Despite of its early foundation, year 617, all of the buildings here in the monastery were constructed after the year 1714. In that year, the abbot of the monastery gave order to renew the monastery. The old Gothic buildings were pulled down and a new Baroque monastery was created. The work here in the church started in the year 1716. The church is dedicated to Saint George. You can see his sculpture's famous fight against the dragon here right on the main altar. The church was constructed in late Baroque style, the typical Bavarian style. This Bavarian late Baroque style must be seen in context of Counter-Reformation. Decisive event of the 17th century in Central Europe, and especially in Germany, was the 30 Years religious war between the Roman Catholics in the south, especially Bavaria and Austria, and the Protestants in the north. And after the end of that war, 1648, people living in the south wanted to demonstrate that there are still Roman Catholics, and so lots of new churches were constructed in a breathtaking new style, typical Catholic style. Totally different to Protestant churches. Protestant churches are considered to be more functional, and if you look to all this gold and silver here, it's kind of public relation for Roman Catholic belief. Typical elements of this Bavarian late Baroque style are well, today we would say the special effects, like in the movies, for example, the use of light. In this church are lots of hidden windows. You don't see the windows, but you see the light coming through the windows. For example, the sculpture of Saint George looks like behind him would be a spotlight, but only in windows, all natural light. Another point is the theatrical effect. If you look to the main altar, the fight of Saint George against the dragon, you've got the impression like sitting in a theater and looking to the stage, and like in a theater, there are 2 balconies to the left and to the right hand side for very important guests of the monastery. Well, the church here was executed by 2 of the greatest masters in that style, 2 brothers named Asam, A-S-A-M, Cosmas Damian Asam. He was the architect and painter. He was 30 years old when he started the construction of this church here, and his 6-year younger brother, Edith Quirin, he was responsible for the sculptures. The work here in the church started in the year 1716, and already after 5 years, 1721, the painting on the ceiling was completed. 2 years later, 1723, the main altar was inaugurated. So the work very quick, typical Baroque style. Well, the church is dedicated to Saint George. According to the tradition, Saint George was a historical person. He died in the year 303. He was a Roman soldier, Roman officer, and his legend happened in North Africa, in today's Libya. The city was threatened by an evil beast. Lots of people were killed. Another community had the idea to sacrifice the daughter of the king, a virgin, to the dragon in order to smooth the anger of the evil beast. St. George passed by, he watched the scene, took up his fight against the dragon, killed the dragon, saved the virgin. Of course, this is symbolic. It's the eternal fight of the good against the evil. And the Virgin, here to the right-hand side, the princess is of course a symbol for the Blessed Virgin, for Mary. Decisive difference between Catholic and Protestant belief is the position of Mary, which is much higher in Catholic belief. This here is a Catholic church, so it can be said Mary, after Christ, is the most important person in this church. Well, if you look to the sculpture of St. George, he does not even have the right grip to his weapon, to his lance, but also that's symbolic. It's not the hand of St. George that kills the dragon, he is a force behind him. It's the hand of God that kills the evil. Strictly speaking, the most important thing here is not St. George. He is standing right on the main altar. The main altar is gilded. Gold was considered to be the most precious material. And here on the gilded main altar, you see the cross. So strictly speaking, the monks here are not bending down in front of St. George, they're bending down in front of the cross, in front of Jesus Christ. To the left of the right-hand side of the main altar, you see two white sculptures. These are the secondary patrons of this church. The sculpture to the right, that's St. Maurus, he was a pupil of St. Benedict, and here to the left-hand side, that's St. Martin. Also, Martin was a historical person. He died in the year 397. He was the bishop of Tours, a city in France, and according to his tradition, he was too humble to accept the election to be a bishop, and so he hid. But his hiding place was given away by the cackling of a goose. And so the goose became one of the symbols of St. Martin. And if you look close, there is a goose to his right foot. And if you look how the goose is behaving towards the dragon, it's hissing against the dragon, so it's taking up its personal fight against the evil. On these small things, the humor of the Asams can be seen. By the way, here in Bavaria, it's an old custom on St. Martin's Day, which is November 11th, we've got roast goose. Quite loyal. Well, the church has an oval plan. You see this oval form again by looking up to the ceiling, and you see that the inner cupola is not closed, it's an open cupola, and above this inner open cupola, a second cupola rises, and on the ceiling of that second cupola, you see a painting that depicts heaven of all saints of Roman Catholic belief. In the lower part of that second cupola, again, hidden windows. You don't see the windows, but you see the light coming through the windows. So again, a special effect. And talking about special effects, the cupola itself is a special effect, for it's a flat ceiling. And only the painting of Mr. Asam gives you the illusion of a cupola, but it's a flat wooden ceiling. Ingenious construction, the architect will be proud of himself, and you bet he was. You can see the architect himself by looking to the right-hand side. You see a gigantic painting. Above the painting, a window. Above that, a reddish sculpture. And above that, gentleman in a red coat and a wig leaning down to us from heaven. That's Cosmas Damian Asam, the architect and painter of this church. Well, he's not quite in heaven, for right above him there is a golden crown surrounding the open cupola, and that's, of course, the symbol for the borderline between the Son of Earth and the Son of Heaven. Well, the painting on the ceiling depicting all saints of Roman Catholic belief is a very joyful painting, a very optimistic painting. There are even some musicians up there. You see angels playing the lute. Backwards, you can recognize King David with his harp, and to the left of King David, Saint Cecily playing the organ. It's really for us believers sitting down here in the benches in the darkness, and this here is the darkness. There are no windows in the lower part of this church, so for us sitting down here in the darkness, the wish rises to join the saints up there in the zone of light in heaven. We live a little bit when the saints go marching in, and the idea of this church, it is possible to join the saints to reach heaven. Others, definitely. Above all, Saint Benedict himself. If you look at this gigantic gilded relief on there, that depicts the death of Saint Benedict. He's dying a natural death in the arm of his confriars, and from heaven there is a sun ray coming down, and in that sun ray you see the shape of a child. That's of course the symbol for the soul of Benedict. So Benedict is dying, his soul is going straight up to heaven. Three other gilded reliefs of these dimensions depicting scenes from the life of Saint Benedict. On the right-hand side, for example, the foundation of the monastery Monte Cassino in Italy. There in Monte Cassino he wrote his famous Regulations, which became the foundation for all monasteries all over the world. Between the four large gilded reliefs, four smaller gilded reliefs, and they are depicting the four archangels. They're standing on letters, and these are the first letters of their names. Here on the right-hand side, you see an M for Michael. To the left-hand side, an R for Raphael. Looking backwards, a G for Gabriel, and finally a U for Uriel. Four archangels. They are wearing four different types of headgears, so they are representing four continents. Michael, for example, is wearing a helmet representing Europe. Here, Raphael is wearing a turban representing Asia. 1721, only four continents. Bad luck for the Australians. Australia was not yet discovered. Well, this understanding with the gilded reliefs is of course very difficult to reach from the zone of darkness, from the zone of earth, but there is a connection between the zone of earth and the zone of heaven. If you look to this reddish sculpture here, right underneath the gilded relief, it's really hanging in a zone in between. It's a real connection between two zones, and that's one of the four evangelists. It's Saint John, the evangelist, his symbol, the eagle, gilded to his left-hand side. So the idea of this church here, by following the words of the Gospels, it is possible to reach the zone of heaven, to reach the zone of light. Also, the three other evangelists are depicted here on four sides: Matthew, above the old Marcus, and to the right-hand side Luke with his symbol, the bull. Well, the church here opens in four large niches. To the east, the main altar. To the west, the organ, executed by Konrad Brandenstein, 1729, still playing today. To the left-hand side, the pulpit. On top of the pulpit, again, a sculpture of Saint Benedict. The pulpit, by the way, is made out of stone. It looks like wood, but a very fine example of stone craftsmanship. On the opposite side, here you see a gigantic painting, and that depicts the second landing of Christopher Columbus in America. On his second journey, Columbus had 12 Benedictine monks with him to bring Christianity to America. In the right corner, you see Native Americans with their feathers. They're looking curious to the arriving ship. Evil forces, devils with wings, are trying to pull back the ship to prevent Columbus from landing, but Columbus is not alone. Right in front of the ship, to the left of Columbus, you see the Blessed Virgin. If you remember the name of the ship of Columbus, Santa Maria. So with the help of the Blessed Virgin, Christianity was brought to America. Between the four large niches, you see four smaller niches. These are the side altars of this church here. Very typical, the twisted columns here. You find them again here on the main altar. Well, one typical element of all Baroque art is movement. If you look to the paintings, there is movement everywhere, and the movement is even in the columns. No straight columns, but twisted columns. By the way, that's a quotation of the main Catholic Church. It's a quotation of St. Peter's in Rome, in Italy. Also there on the main altar you'll find these twisted columns. The architect Bernini had originally invented.